My name's irrelevant now. What matters is I was a Signal Corps operator in the American Expeditionary Forces, 22 years old when I shipped out in 1918. Before that, I worked for Western Union in Philadelphia, sending telegrams about births and deaths and business deals, clean work, quiet work. I was good with Morse code. Fast fingers, they said. That's why they put me in the Signal Corps instead of handing me a rifle. Thought I'd gotten lucky. Thought I'd avoid the worst of it. I was wrong about that, too. They trained us at Camp Alfred Vale in New Jersey, taught us field telephone operations, how to lay wire under fire, how to keep communications open when shells were ripping everything apart. We learned codes, procedures, discipline. The instructors told us we'd be the nervous system of the Army. Without us, the body couldn't function. Made it sound important. Made it sound like we'd be safe in the rear, tucked away in some command post with hot coffee and a roof over our heads. That lasted about a week once we hit France. They assigned me to the 77th Division during the Meuse-Argonne offensive. September 1918. We pushed into the Argonne forest, and I was running communication lines between battalion headquarters and the forward units. Sometimes we had telephone lines. Mostly they got blown to hell within hours. That's when you went back to the key. Back to Morse. Back to the dots and dashes that had to get through no matter what. I set up in a dugout that shook with every shell burst. My equipment was a field telegraph set, a battery unit, and whatever wire we could scavenge. Sometimes I'd be tapping out messages while dirt rained down from the ceiling, while rats ran across my boots, while the candles flickered and threatened to go out. The messages I sent, God, the messages. Need artillery support grid, 274.6 immediate stop. Casualty count 47, dead 89, wounded stop. Position overrun, request reinforcements stop. Every message had numbers attached, numbers that used to mean something different. Now they meant bodies. They meant boys from Brooklyn and Georgia and Iowa torn apart by machine gun fire. They meant lungs burned out by gas. They meant limbs in the mud. I sent those numbers with steady hands. Had to. If you thought about what they meant, you couldn't function. October was the worst. We were bogged down, taking heavy casualties for every yard of ground. The Germans were dug in deep, and they weren't giving up easy. I remember one night a runner came stumbling into my dugout, kid named Private Hoskins. Couldn't have been more than 19. He was crying, covered in blood that wasn't his. He had a message written on a piece of paper, but his hands were shaking so bad he couldn't give it to me. "They're all dead," he kept saying. "Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Chen, Sergeant Davies, they're all dead." I took the paper, read it, had to send it. That's the job. Company C decimated. Stop requesting withdrawal to secondary line. Stop officer casualties, total stop. I tapped it out. Dots and dashes, clean, precise, professional. Hoskins watched me the whole time. When I finished, he asked, "Does it matter? Does any of it matter?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. The reply came back 30 minutes later. "Hold position. Stop, no withdrawal authorized. Stop, reinforcements, dawn, stop." I had to relay that to what was left of Company C, sent another runner. He didn't come back. You start to understand something after weeks of this. You're not really helping. You're just documenting the slaughter. Every message is another notation in the ledger of the dead. And you send them with clean, efficient keystrokes because that's what you were trained to do. The worst messages were the ones asking for help that never came, the desperate ones. Under heavy attack, stop casualties. Mounting, stop where our reinforcements stop. And I'd have to send back whatever headquarters told me to send. Usually something about holding on, about reinforcements coming, about the big picture. The big picture. As if that meant anything to men drowning in their own blood. I sent a message on October 17th from a lieutenant whose name I never learned. He was coordinating an assault across open ground. I could hear it happening. The machine guns, the artillery, the screaming. His messages came in fragments. First wave pinned down, stop. Second wave, launching, stop. Heavy casualties, stop. Need medics, stop. Need more medics, stop. Then nothing for 3 hours. Then, objective secured, stop counting survivors, stop. I waited for casualty figures. They came through at 2,300 hours. 73% casualties for 600 yards of forest. Trees so torn up by shells they looked like matchsticks, and we'd do it again tomorrow. November came. We started hearing rumors. The Germans were faltering. Talks were happening. An armistice, they said. Soon. But the dying didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. Like both sides wanted to empty their magazines before the bell rang. I was running on maybe 2 hours of sleep a night. Coffee and cigarettes. That's what kept us going. My hands developed a tremor when I wasn't working the key, only steadied when I was tapping out messages. I knew most of the operators on the other end by their sending style. Everyone has a rhythm to their Morse, a personality in the dots and dashes. There was one operator, I called him Heavy Hand because he hit the key hard, made aggressive dashes, who went silent on November 3rd. His replacement had a lighter touch, hesitant, new. I wondered if Heavy Hand had caught a shell, or if he'd just broken down. I'd seen it happen. Men who couldn't send another message about death, who'd just walk away from the key and stare at nothing. I came close myself. November 7th, I received a message from a forward observation post. They were reporting on a gas attack, mustard gas. The operator's sending got slower as the message went on. More mistakes, more repeated letters. Gas shells incoming, stop masks on stop wind shift. Then garbled nonsense, then nothing. I sent, confirm status, stop. No response. I tried again and again. Kept trying for 20 minutes. Finally, a different operator came on, different sending style. Previous operator, deceased, stop gas, penetrated, dugout, stop 7 dead, stop. I logged it, sent it up the chain, moved on to the next message. That's what you did. You moved on. November 11th, 1918. 05:45 hours. I got the message before most people in the division knew. It came through from Corps Headquarters marked URGENT priority. Armistice signed. Stop hostilities cease. 1100 hours. Stop all commanders. Acknowledge stop. My hands stopped moving. I read it 3 times. It was over. 6 hours. We had 6 hours left. I should have felt something. Relief, joy, something. But I just sat there, staring at the paper, and all I could think was 6 more hours for men to die in a war that's already over. I sent the message to every unit in our network, tapped it out mechanically, precisely, the way I'd been trained. The acknowledgments came back. Some operators sent cleanly, some sent with mistakes, like their hands were shaking. One operator sent back, "Thank God, stop." I sat at my post for the next 6 hours monitoring traffic. The fighting didn't stop. Orders kept coming through for attacks, for holding positions, for one last push. At 10:43 hours, 17 minutes before the ceasefire, I received a frantic message from a battalion under heavy artillery fire. Request counter-battery fire, stop taking casualties, stop. I relayed it. Got a response. Negative, stop armistice in 15 minutes. Stop, maintain position, stop. Maintain position. For 15 more minutes, men were supposed to sit there and die because the clock hadn't run out yet. I sent the reply. That was my job. At 10:55 hours, 5 minutes before the end, I got one last casualty report. Artillery strike, stop 4, dead, stop, Johnson, Martinez, Kowalski, LeBlanc, stop. 4 names. 4 men who died 5 minutes before peace. I logged it, sent it to headquarters. At 1100 hours, the gun stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. It felt wrong, empty, like the world had stopped breathing. I sat at my key, waiting for another message. Any message. But there was nothing. Just silence. I finally stepped outside the dugout at 11:30 hours. Men were standing around looking lost. Some were crying, some were laughing. Most just stood there like they didn't know what to do with themselves now that nobody was trying to kill them. Someone offered me a cigarette. I took it. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold it. I came home in March 1919. They put me back at Western Union. Same job, same desk, same key. But every telegram I sent, I saw those other messages. The casualty counts, the desperate requests for help, the acknowledgments that came from men who'd be dead within the hour. I lasted 3 months before I had to quit. Couldn't touch a telegraph key anymore without my hand shaking, without seeing those names. Johnson, Martinez, Kowalski, LeBlanc. 4 men who died for nothing. People ask me about the war sometimes. They want to know what it was like when the armistice came through. They expect some story about celebration, about joy, about the relief of survival. I tell them about the silence, about the 6 hours we had to wait while men kept dying, about sending that last casualty report 5 minutes before peace. They don't understand. They think I'm being dramatic. But I'm not. I'm being honest. See, people think the Signal Corps had it easy. We weren't in the trenches, weren't going over the top, weren't facing machine gun fire, and that's true, we weren't. But we sent the messages that ordered men into that fire. We sent the casualty counts after they died. We were the ones who had to translate human suffering into dots and dashes, into numbers and grid coordinates. We documented the slaughter with clean, professional keystrokes. And we did it because somebody had to. Because the war machine needed its nervous system to function. Because without us, the generals couldn't feed more men into the meat grinder. I think about that operator who died sending a message about a gas attack. I think about Heavy Hand, who disappeared one day. I think about all the runners who brought me messages and never made it back. I think about Johnson, Martinez, Kowalski, and LeBlanc. 5 minutes. They had 5 minutes left to live. I still dream in Morse code sometimes. Wake up at 0300 hours with my fingers twitching, tapping out messages on the bedsheet. Messages that nobody needs to receive anymore. Messages from ghosts. The war ended on November 11th, 1918, at 1100 hours. But for me, for all of us who came back, it never really ended. We're still sending those messages. Still counting the dead, still sitting in our dugouts, waiting for the next urgent priority signal that will tell us something we already know. That war is waste, that it destroys everyone it touches, that there's no glory in sending men to die, even if you do it from a distance with clean hands and proper procedures. They gave me a service medal. It's in a drawer somewhere. Never looked at it. What would I do with it? Pin it on and pretend those dots and dashes meant something other than death? The Signal Corps motto was, get the message through. We got them through, every single one, and we've been carrying them ever since.